There is something you carry inside you that is infinitely more powerful than any expensive perfume, any designer clothing, or any seduction technique you have ever tried to apply. Carl Jung referred to this as integrated psychic energy, and the moment you truly understand how to access it, your presence begins to transform into something almost magnetic, something that cannot be manufactured or faked. People sense your energy before you even open your mouth. They feel drawn to you without being able to explain why. They move closer, linger longer, and pay attention without conscious effort. And the most fascinating part is that this has absolutely nothing to do with physical appearance. What I am about to share directly contradicts everything modern society teaches about attraction and desirability. While the world insists that magnetism comes from muscles, makeup, status, confidence performances, or external validation, Jung discovered that there is a far more ancient and primitive force operating beneath all of that. A force that, once awakened, makes you dangerously attractive without needing to impress, chase, or perform for anyone. This force does not come from doing more, but from becoming whole. In this video, I am revealing what can be considered Carl Jung's most closely guarded psychological insight about sexual magnetism. And when I say guarded, I mean that this is rarely discussed openly, even though it explains why certain people have a presence that is impossible to ignore, while others, no matter how beautiful or polished they appear, fade into the background unnoticed. The difference is not in what they display, but in what they contain. It is not in what they do, but in who they are. And if you are ready to discover how to become someone whose presence can be felt from meters away, then stay with this until the end. Because what Jung revealed about sexual energy and personal magnetism has the power to completely change the way you exist in the world. And as you reflect on this, tell me in the comments from which country and city you are watching, because I want to know where you are joining me from and how this message resonates with your own journey. Jung was not speaking about manipulation or cheap seduction tricks. He was revealing a profound truth about human energy, about how certain individuals radiate a force that is felt rather than explained. And that force does not come from the desire to please or impress. It comes from something far deeper, the complete integration of who you truly are. What Jung discovered is that truly magnetic people do not hide their darkness. They integrate it. While most people try to appear perfect, polished, and endlessly positive, those who possess real magnetism have made peace with their own shadow. They know their inner demons, their most primitive desires, their contradictions, and inattentions. And instead of denying them, suppressing them, or pretending they do not exist, they learn to dance with them. Jung believed it was impossible to be genuinely attractive without going through this process of shadow integration. Because when you reject parts of yourself, you cut off access to your full sexual and vital energy. You become fragmented, predictable, and devoid of mystery. But when you accept and integrate every aspect of your personality, including those parts society labels as inappropriate, uncomfortable, or undesirable, something extraordinary begins to happen. You become whole, and whole people exert an almost hypnotic attraction. Think about the individuals you have encountered who possess an undeniable presence. They may not be the most conventionally beautiful person in the room, yet there is something about them that captures your attention, something you cannot clearly define, but can deeply feel. What you are sensing is the presence of someone who is no longer wasting energy trying to hide who they are. This is someone who has made peace with their own complexity and, as a result, can channel all of that reclaimed energy into pure presence. Most people live at war with themselves. They spend enormous amounts of energy suppressing impulses, hiding insecurities, and maintaining a carefully constructed facade of perfection. But this internal war creates a tension that others perceive, even if only subconsciously. Have you ever been near someone who seems to always be controlling themselves? Someone who, even while smiling, gives off a sense that something is forced or unresolved. That uncomfortable sensation is the energy of a person who has not integrated their shadow. Now compare that with someone you know who seems genuinely at ease with themselves. Someone who can be vulnerable without appearing weak, intense without becoming aggressive, sensual without becoming vulgar. This person has integrated aspects of their personality that appear contradictory on the surface. And because of that integration, they radiate an authenticity that feels deeply magnetic. This magnetism does not come from trying to be attractive. It comes from being real, from allowing all parts of yourself to exist without internal censorship. When nothing inside you is being suppressed, your energy flows freely, and that flow is what others feel as presence, depth, and sexual magnetism. Jung believed that true sexual attraction is not rooted in perfection, but in wholeness. And wholeness means something far deeper than appearing flawless on the surface. It means accepting and integrating both light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, the refined and the instinctual, the civilized and the primitive within you. When you stop fighting parts of your personality and instead begin to consciously understand, integrate, and channel them, your inner energy stops contradicting itself. It becomes coherent, powerful, and naturally magnetic. There is no longer an internal war draining your vitality. What emerges is a unified presence that others can feel without you saying a single word. But Jung identified another crucial element that most people overlook: focused psychic energy. He observed that truly attractive individuals do not scatter their energy trying to be liked by everyone. They do not dilute themselves to fit every room. Instead, they concentrate their energy. They know who they are. They know what they want. And they embody that clarity so fully that it radiates outward like an almost physical force. You may have noticed how some people enter a space and immediately you are aware of them, not because they are loud, dramatic, or demanding attention, but because there is something unmistakable in their presence. Jung would explain this phenomenon through the concept of concentrated psychic energy. These individuals are not fragmented in countless directions, trying to be many different versions of themselves for many different people. They are one thing, lived with intensity. Modern society, however, trains us to do the opposite. It teaches us to be chameleons, to constantly adapt, to adjust our personality depending on who is watching, to wear different masks in different situations in order to be accepted, approved of, or rewarded. Jung observed that this constant shape-shifting comes at a high cost. It disperses our vital energy. When you are changing masks all the time, you lose access to your magnetic core. You no longer feel solid inside yourself. Instead of a grounded presence, you become a collection of empty performances. People may see you, but they do not feel you. Real magnetism does not come from endless flexibility. It comes from inner decisions. Truly magnetic people have chosen. They know what they value. They know what they desire. They know what they refuse to compromise on. This internal clarity creates a centripetal force, a kind of gravitational pull that draws others into their orbit, not because they are trying to attract, manipulate, or impress, but because they are being genuinely and fully themselves. Their authenticity is so complete that it becomes irresistible to those who resonate with it. Jung often compared psychic energy to water. When water is spread thin across a shallow surface, it has no real power, but when it is channeled into a narrow path, it becomes strong enough to carve through rock and move mountains. The same principle applies to human presence. When your energy is scattered across endless roles, expectations, and attempts to please, it loses force. When you focus your energy on being authentically you, instead of trying to be everything to everyone, you become magnetic by default. This means that the path to magnetism is not about adding more traits, more techniques, or more personas to your personality. It is about subtraction. It is not about becoming more, but about becoming more yourself. When you strip away what is false, performative, and imposed, what remains is your natural frequency. And when you live from that frequency without apology, the people who resonate with it are drawn to you effortlessly, while those who do not simply fall away. And this is not a problem. In fact, it is exactly how it should be. You do not want to attract everyone. You want to attract the right people. This is where Jung made a subtle but powerful distinction between charisma and true magnetism. Charisma is something you project outward. It is performance. It is the ability to give people what they want to see. It is often strategic, adaptive, and dependent on external feedback. True magnetism is the opposite. It is not projected. It emanates. It arises from within and does not require performance to exist. Charismatic people are skilled at reading the room and adjusting themselves accordingly. Magnetic people do not adjust. They simply are. And people either feel drawn to them or they do not. Paradoxically, this lack of effort to please is precisely what makes true magnetism so powerful. When Jung observed human behavior, he noticed something subtle yet powerful. The moment you stop trying to control how others perceive you, something extraordinary begins to happen. A raw, unfiltered authenticity emerges, and that authenticity carries an almost irresistible pull. In a world crowded with people performing versions of themselves, adapting their masks to be liked, approved of, or desired, the person who simply allows themselves to be becomes strikingly visible. Such a person stands out like a quiet flame in the dark, not because they demand attention, but because their presence feels real. At the deepest level, Jung understood that true sexual and personal magnetism has very little to do with seduction in the conventional sense. Seduction is intentional. It is strategic. It aims at a specific outcome. Fascination, however, operates on an entirely different plane. Fascination arises when your very existence becomes interesting enough that others feel drawn toward you without you having to do anything at all. It is not about trying to attract. It is about becoming someone worth discovering. Jung believed that when you become fascinating to yourself, when your inner world grows rich, layered, and complex, people naturally feel compelled to know you. They sense that there is more beneath the surface. They feel that there are depths to explore, meanings to uncover, and truths that cannot be grasped at a glance. This attraction does not come from surface-level beauty or clever techniques, but from psychological depth. The question, then, is how such fascination is developed. Jung would say that it emerges through the process he called individuation. Individuation is the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are by integrating all aspects of your psyche, not just the parts that are socially acceptable or easy to show. This process inevitably requires confronting the shadow, the hidden, rejected, or uncomfortable parts of yourself, and accepting the full complexity of your nature rather than trying to present a sanitized, edited version of who you are. When you stop hiding your imperfections and instead integrate them into your sense of self, something almost magical occurs. You become real, and real people possess a magnetic quality that no amount of performance can imitate. Think of the individuals you have found most compelling in your life. Not necessarily the most physically beautiful, but the ones whose presence you could not ignore. Chances are they shared certain traits. They did not conceal their oddities. They were comfortable with silence. They did not constantly seek validation. And there was something about them that felt quietly mysterious, something that made you want to know more. This sense of mystery is essential to magnetism, but not the artificial kind. It is not about deliberately being vague or playing games. It is the natural mystery that arises when someone has a deep inner life. When a person does not externalize every thought and emotion, when their depth cannot be easily categorized or reduced to labels, they become intriguing by default. In an age where people broadcast every detail of their lives on social media, someone who retains a sense of inner privacy stands out. Not because they are hiding something, but because they understand that not everything needs to be exposed, and that some depths are meant to remain internal. Jung also emphasized another crucial dimension of magnetism: physical presence. He believed that psychic energy expresses itself through the body, through posture, movement, and the way a person inhabits space. Magnetically attractive individuals possess a physical presence that goes beyond appearance. They move with intention rather than anxiety. They occupy space naturally without shrinking themselves or exaggerating their importance. They maintain eye contact because they are not afraid of being seen. They speak clearly because they know what they want to express, and they truly listen because they are genuinely interested in what others have to say. All of this creates a presence that others can feel on a visceral level. It has nothing to do with height, body type, or conventional beauty. It has everything to do with how you inhabit your body, how you relate to the space around you, and how you engage with others from a place of inner integrity. Jung also noticed that magnetically attractive people have a distinctive relationship with their desires. They do not deny what they want, but neither are they enslaved by their impulses. They feel deeply without being ruled by their emotions. They are passionate, yet disciplined. This integration between desire and self-control, between intensity and containment, generates a dynamic tension that is profoundly attractive. It feels like an electrical current. There is energy, but also restraint. Fire, but with form. This is very different from those who are completely repressed, lacking fire, or those who are entirely uncontained, all fire with no structure. Passion that is conscious, disciplined, and integrated creates a magnetic force that is difficult to resist. Perhaps most importantly, Jung discovered that truly magnetic individuals have a unique relationship with solitude. They are not constantly seeking external validation because they have cultivated a strong connection with themselves. They can be alone without feeling lonely. Their inner life is rich enough that it does not depend on constant stimulation or attention from others. This creates a form of emotional independence that is deeply attractive. when you do not desperately need someone, when you are genuinely at ease with yourself, but still choose to connect with others, the entire dynamic of attraction changes. You are no longer operating from lack, but from abundance. And abundance, in its quiet confidence and self-sufficiency, is inherently magnetic. Jung observed that when you stop desperately searching for connection and begin to genuinely connect with yourself, external connections begin to flow naturally. It is as if you generate a gravitational field around your being. People are drawn into your orbit, not because you demand attention, but because they feel the solidity, the inner coherence, and the sense of wholeness that emanates from you. This attraction is not forced. It arises quietly, almost mysteriously, as a consequence of inner alignment rather than outward effort. Yet Jung understood a paradox that many people struggle to accept. The less you need to be attractive, the more attractive you become. The less you try to impress, the more impressive your presence feels. The less you attempt to perform magnetism, the more magnetic you naturally are. This happens because the moment you stop trying, you release enormous amounts of energy that were previously consumed by maintaining an image, defending a persona, or proving your worth. That liberated energy does not disappear. It returns to you and can finally be used to deepen your presence, to inhabit yourself more fully and more honestly. When this energy is no longer wasted on performance, it becomes available for being. You begin to exist with greater intensity, greater depth, and greater integration. People sense this immediately. They may not be able to explain it logically, but they can feel the difference between someone who is striving and someone who is simply present. And simple presence, when it is rooted in authenticity, is infinitely more compelling than any carefully constructed display, no matter how refined or sophisticated that display may appear. Jung also recognized that those who possess true magnetism often carry a sense of timelessness about them. They are not anxiously chasing trends or trying to prove that they are relevant. Instead, they embody a quality that feels classical, enduring, and grounded beyond passing fashions. This does not mean they are outdated or disconnected from the world. Rather, it means they have developed a way of being, a style of existence that arises from who they are internally rather than from what happens to be celebrated externally. This kind of timeless authenticity is deeply attractive precisely because it is rare. In a world where most people are racing to keep up, someone who stands firmly in their own essence immediately stands out. They are not following trends. In a subtle way, they become the reference point, not because they seek to lead or dominate, but because they are genuinely aligned with themselves. Their presence feels anchored, unhurried, and real, and this quality quietly commands attention without demanding it. Perhaps Jung's deepest insight into magnetism lies in his understanding that true sexual and personal attraction operates at an archetypal level. It is not merely about physical chemistry or emotional compatibility. It is about the recognition of ancient patterns embedded deep within the human psyche. When you become truly integrated, when you embrace both your light and your shadow, when you allow yourself to be fully and honestly who you are, you begin to embody universal archetypes. In that moment, you are no longer experienced as just an individual person. You become a symbol, a living expression of something larger and more universal. People respond to this unconsciously. They sense that you represent something meaningful, something significant, even if they cannot articulate what it is. You touch something primal within them, something older than logic and language. This is the realm beyond surface attraction, where recognition occurs at a deep psychological level. It feels familiar, powerful, and strangely inevitable, as though something ancient has been awakened. Jung referred to this process as the transcendent function. When you integrate apparent opposites within yourself, when you stop fragmenting your identity and begin to hold your contradictions consciously, you transcend the usual limitations of personality. You start to embody universal qualities that resonate deeply with others. This is why certain individuals possess a presence that feels larger than their personal history or circumstances. They have integrated aspects of the hero, the lover, the sage, the rebel, not as roles they perform, but as energies they genuinely live. This archetypal resonance is the deepest form of magnetism there is. It cannot be faked, learned as a technique, or activated through strategy. It emerges as a byproduct of inner honesty and psychological integration. But how does one cultivate this kind of presence? Jung would say it begins with radical honesty toward yourself. You must stop trying to be who you think you should be and begin discovering who you actually are. You must stop rejecting parts of yourself and start integrating them. You must stop performing and begin existing. This is not a single moment of realization, but a continuous process. It is an unfolding journey of self-awareness and self-acceptance. It is the work of a lifetime, a gradual deepening into authenticity. And while the path demands courage and patience, the results are extraordinary. As you integrate yourself, something fundamental shifts in how you move through the world. You develop a presence that is naturally magnetic, not because you seek attention, but because you have become someone worth noticing. In the end, this is the true secret of magnetism, as Jung understood it. It has nothing to do with techniques, manipulation, or performance. It is about becoming so fully, so completely, and so authentically yourself that your very presence becomes a force of nature. When you stop trying to be attractive and begin to be fascinating, when you stop trying to seduce and start existing fully, you become irresistibly compelling in a way that transcends superficial attraction. If something within you resonated while reading this, if you sense that a more integrated and magnetic version of yourself is waiting to emerge, acknowledge it. Recognition is the first step toward commitment. As Jung famously suggested, the one who looks outward dreams, but the one who looks inward awakens. Awakening, however, demands more than understanding. It requires conscious action, day after day. Today can be the quiet beginning of a new presence, one that is whole, deep, and grounded. Thank you for being here.